friends, welcome to another Garden City Arts online program. My name is Katie Guthrie and I am going to help walk you through step by step this really fun project we have planned for you today. So really fast, let's talk about the supplies that you'll need. You'll want to have on hand 2 pieces of green construction paper. They need to be about 9 inches by 11, but whatever you have is just fine. You'll also need to have 1 blue piece of construction paper. You'll want to have some smaller, maybe scrap pieces of paper as well. White if you plan on doing a bunny like I did, some pinks for our red flowers, and some yellows for our red flowers, okay? And you'll also want to have either oil pastels, crayons, or colored pencils. One of those 3 is perfect. I like oil pastels and that's what I used for my project today. The other things that you want to have on hand would be a pencil. Always good to have a pencil when you're making art. A pair of scissors. And you'll want to have a butter knife, which might sound a little weird, but it'll make sense soon. So those are the tools that we will need. Now let's talk really fast about this project and then we'll get started. So the project that I have planned for you today is a paper collage, okay? And then we used oil pastels to make those pieces of paper pop and have detail. Now the reason it's not a flat 2-dimensional piece of art or 2-dimensional collage is because it has depth, okay? Do you see how it kind of comes out towards you? So 3-dimensional has depth, unlike 2-dimensional art that is flat and only has height and width, okay? Does that make sense? I hope so. So we're going to take our 2-dimensional paper collages and turn them into 3-dimensional paper collages, and we're going to do that right now. Let's get started. Going to work from the background of our art project to the foreground. Really fast, just in case you're not familiar with those terms. So, background, midground, foreground. We're going to work from the back to the front. Let's go ahead and get started. Very first thing, I am going to go ahead and grab some white construction paper and I'm going to cut out some basic cloud shapes. If you need help coming up with those basic cloud shapes before you cut, kind of imagining them as you go, you can take a black crayon or a black Sharpie and you can make some fluffy big clouds. Then you just go along your lines and cut. I'm going to go ahead and make a whole bunch of these and speed up the video so that we can move on to the next step. So I'm going to speed up right now and then I'll start talking to you about some more things in just a moment. See you soon. Okay, now that we have our clouds cut out, let's talk about how to add some details before we glue them onto our blue piece of paper. So I'm going to grab a black oil pastel and a light blue oil pastel. The first thing I'm going to do is give my cloud some more dimension and also make a little black outline so he'll pop when he's on the blue background. So when I say dimension, I mean that instead of this being just a big empty white space, I'm putting in little curvy lines to kind of make him look a little bit more fluffy. So there's dimension added 1. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them really fast. And then we're going to talk about how to add the blue. Clouds are not just blank white balls of fluff in the sky. They have different colors. They are also a little transparent. You can sometimes see through them a little bit. So I'm going to put some light blue on the bottom of my cloud. I can put maybe a little bit on the top. And I'm doing these little curvy motions, kind of following the lines that I've already put in. Straight lines will make an object feel more flat. Curved lines will give your cloud, or whatever shape you're working on, a little bit more volume. It'll feel round rather than flat. Okay, so I have my clouds done. I can set those to the side for now. I'm going to talk about a bunny rabbit next. So I'm going to be drawing this bunny with Sharpie just so that you can see. I would recommend you using a pencil if you're doing this at home. So the first thing I'm going to do is give this bunny the start of a head by adding 2 little parentheses, basically curved lines that kind of face each other, for the sides of his head. Then I'm going to think about my bunny rabbit's ears. They're going to be nice and pointed and very tall. Bunnies have nice tall ears. Then I'm going to do a little curved line in between that connects the ears so that the top of his head is complete. I'm going to put in some detail lines for his ears. And next I'm going to give him a body. So more parentheses, more curved lines that are kind of facing each other. I'm going to just connect his head to the bottom of my piece of paper. I'm not worrying about paws or anything like that because he's going to be hidden behind the grass once we get all of our collage done. The last thing I'm going to do is give him a face, a cute little bunny face. I always start with the nose, and I start kind of in the middle of his face by giving a little bit of a bump. Then you make a slice of pizza by taking 2 little lines and meeting them in the middle. Then we make a little hook or J's that come out and underneath his or her nose. I'm going to give her or him some nice whiskers and put some dots on there. And then I'm going to give him or her a little open mouth and finish off with eyes. The eyes are going to be nice and big and round. He's a happy, cute bunny. And before you color his eyes in or anything else, I want you to think about how eyes kind of reflect light. So I'm going to make a little circle and a box right here, and I'm going to color everything outside of those in black and leave the circle and the box alone so that it looks like his eyes have light reflecting. Then you can put on some cute little eyelashes if you want to. Next, let's talk about how to add details to this bunny. You really don't have to add a ton of details if you don't want to. I'm going to use some pinks for my details and some grays. You can also use black if you want. Be careful, black can be very overpowering. So the first thing I'm going to do is give my bunny some hair just by adding these little kind of dashed lines in different places on my bunny. She'll, or he'll, look more fluffy. Then I can take my pink and I can give him or her pink ears, coloring in the insides of the ears. Be very careful if you're doing this with oil pastels. It is actually a little difficult to do. And I'm going to give him or her a pink nose and a pink mouth. And now I can go back in with like a white oil pastel, and maybe if I feel like that gray was just a little too overpowering, I can put some white back on top of it. I could even go in and make some areas darker if I want to with the black oil pastel. Just remember, the black goes a really long way, so be careful not to overuse it. I would probably stick more to gray if I were you. And once you're happy with your cute, fluffy bunny, we are ready to cut it out. So carefully cut along the lines, and you can leave the Sharpie lines visible or you can cut them out. I'm cutting them out, so my bunny is not going to have a dark black outline around him or her. Now, this can get tricky, especially in between the ears, so go slow, take your time, do a really good job. And once you're finished, we can start gluing everything on to the background. All right, I have my bunny, I have my clouds. I'm ready to move on to the background. So, with my oil pastels, I'm going to put in some hills. So I'm going to use quite a few colors, not just green. I'm going to use dark green. I'm going to use light green. I might even throw in a little bit of blue and a little bit of black. You can keep things a little bit simpler if you want, just by using a dark green and a light green, or even just one color, whatever. I'm going to not just draw a flat, simple line. I'm going to create two separate hills. So one is going to be a smaller hill that's in front, and the other one's going to be a taller hill behind. Okay, now that I have everything colored in, I can go back in with black and just kind of define and separate my hill in the front from my hill in the back. And basically what I'm doing is outlining and adding some details with my black crayon, or oil pastel, I should say. You don't have to overdo it, just a little bit goes a very long way. And now that we have this finished, we can start gluing. I'm gonna grab my handy dandy glue stick and I'm going to start gluing my clouds on. Now before I make it permanent, it's a good idea to plan, kind of figure out where you want your clouds to be and then glue them on. I would recommend having a big one, a medium one, and a small one. The small one can be close to the ground, big one up high, and the medium one's floating somewhere in the middle. So now that I have it planned out, I'm going to use my glue stick and glue it all down. I apply my glue to the item that is getting glued onto the background, onto the blue piece of paper. And I work so that I can put it right on the edge. I work on a nice dirty surface that I can clean up later. That way, I don't have to stay in the middle of my piece of paper. If I do that, my edges will start coming up. But if I go along the edges with glue, they'll stay down and be nice and flat. Okay, so there are my clouds. I've got my clouds and my ground. Now I'm going to put in my bunny. You can put your bunny in anywhere you want. Okay, I'm going to put my bunny kind of off to the side, not so much in the middle. And I don't want to put my bunny on top of a cloud because do you see how it's hard to tell the difference between bunny and cloud? Instead, I'm going to pick a nice open blue area. And I'm going to glue my bunny just a little bit from the bottom. It's okay to have that empty space there. We're going to put the green ground in just a moment, and it'll be covered. All right, all finished with that. Now we're gonna move on to the green ground. Let's go ahead and get started on the ground. So the ground is the part of our 3D collage that is three-dimensional. The very first thing that we need to do is grab our two pieces of construction paper, put one off to the side for now, and we need to turn our piece of paper so that it is longest from the top to the bottom. All right, so portrait style is longest from top to bottom and shorter if you go from left to right. Now we are going to cut our paper down into two pieces. And to do that, we're going to take the top part of our construction paper, bend it down to the bottom, and and we're gonna match corner to corner. When we do this, we want the paper to be flush, so it should be even. We don't want the paper to look something like that, okay? We want to only see 2 corners because we're matching those corners together, and we want the paper to be nice and flush. We're gonna take our pointer finger and we're gonna break that curve down and flatten it out. When you crease paper, you are creating a line so that when you open the paper back up, you can still see where you folded the paper. So we have that done. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing to the other piece of paper. Take the top part, fold it down to the bottom part, and match corner to corner. Use our finger to break that wave. And now we have a fold in the paper. When you fold paper over like this so that you could open it up like a book, that's actually called a folio. So we're gonna take one folio and put the other folio inside so that we really do look like we have a book. And now we're going to cut the paper down. Now if you want to, you could use scissors and cut along the edge. I'm gonna show you how to cut with a butter knife. I like to do this. I think it's a little easier, but if you think that the scissors are easier, use that method. With our butter knife, we're gonna do this little circular motion, okay? Round, and we're gonna slide it in between our folios and do little teeny tiny circles. The slower you go and the smaller the circles, the better your paper is going to cut. Now we have 4 rectangles, and we're ready to start folding. I'm going to take all of these pieces of paper and bunch them together, and I'm going to fold them accordion style. Now, before you start folding, make sure that your paper is flush. Again, what I mean by that is that it doesn't look like this. It looks like a neat deck of cards all put together so that all the edges line up. Now I'm going to lay my paper down on the table, and I'm going to fold the bottom over, making sure that it's nice and in line with the sides. And I'm going to only do about 1.5 inches, okay? Maybe if you look at your finger, maybe from the tip of your finger to the joint, that's about how wide you want your paper to fold. And then I'm going to crease it. Remember, when we crease it, we push and get a nice solid crease so that when we open up the paper, you can still see the line where it folded. Now I'm going to flip my paper upside down so that it looks like we just have a smaller rectangle. And I'm going to take and fold my paper again. I want it to be the same height from top to bottom as the last fold. Crease. And do you see how now it has kind of a zigzag look? Okay, we are doing what's called accordion folding. Okay, and I'll show you why it looks like, why it's called accordion folding in just a moment. But first I'm going to continue going all the way until I run out of paper. So there we go. Now we have 4 pieces of paper that are all accordion folded. We're ready to start gluing them together. So we're going to take just 2 pieces for now, and we're going to put glue on one of the little edges that we've created. Do you see how it almost looks like there's separate sections to our paper now due to the creases that we made? I'm going to put glue on just one of those sections, and then I'm going to line it up with the section on the next piece of paper. So when you do that, what I do to make sure it lines up really nice and neat is to line up the creases, and there you go. Now our pieces of paper are glued together. Now we do not have 2 pieces of accordion folded paper. We have one really giant one. We're going to keep doing that until all of our pieces of paper are all glued together. So I did it kind of backwards. I would suggest finding like a V instead of a mountain. Okay, so this would be the mountain. This would be the V for the valley. And I would put the glue on one side of the valley and then put the mountain on top of the valley. Okay, the one side of the mountain. And it just looks a little bit prettier. Your teacher messed up on demoing in just a second ago. But you learn by doing, right? You learn from the mistakes. So, especially the mistakes your teacher does. So I now have 3 pieces of green paper glued together. Now, I could technically stop here. On my original, I only have 3 pieces of green paper glued together. But if you want your piece of paper to be wider, then you could glue a 4th one on. I'm gonna just call it good and just go with 3 for now. All right, I'm gonna quickly show you how to draw 3 different types of flowers that you can use to decorate the ground on your 3D collage. So the very first would be our simplest flower, and those would be tulips. So the very first thing you want to do is start off with a pretty big U, because you need space to put petals inside. Next, I'm going to start on the point of one of my U's and put a nice big curved line that comes all the way through the center and stops at the outside of my U. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. Start at the point, do a nice big curved line, but I'm going to stop once it reaches the line and done. Now, it's a little empty inside, so I'm going to add a nice big kind of curvy mountain that goes from one petal to the other. Then, if you want to, you could put the center of the flower in and you're finished. Now keep in mind, it doesn't have to be that perfect tulip every single time. It could be a smaller one that's maybe more symmetrical, meaning that it looks more similar on the left and the right side. It's kind of mirrored. Or it could be an extreme tulip so that this goes all the way over to the other side and you barely see the other petals. So lots of different ways to draw the tulip. Remember to draw some big and some small. Next, let's talk about daffodils. Daffodils are probably the most advanced flower I'm going to show you how to draw today. So if you are more of a beginner, then I would stick with tulips or carnations. So daffodils, we're going to start with the opening of the daffodil. It's going to be kind of a squiggly line inside, and then you'll see the inside of the flower right there. Then on the edges of my very thin oval that's kind of squiggly, I'm going to put lines that start to come towards each other and stop leaving an opening. Then I'm going to end those 2 lines with a nice little curved line. And if you want to, you could put in some details, like some striations or lines on that tulip. Last, I'm going to end with petals. And these petals are our traditional kind of football looking petals that are kind of pointed on the end and very curvy and round on the outside edges. So I'm going to start right at the bottom of where I left off and make a nice big curved line, stop at my point, go back to my bottom, and come back to a point. Now, our petals can overlap. Overlapping means when one goes on top of the other and kind of covers up information that's below it. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to do another petal over here. And then I'm going to fill in all this empty space by putting in a petal that goes behind those 2. Then I can do another petal. And I'm gonna stop about halfway, and then that's it. You're done with your daffodil. If you want to, you could add some tinier petals that kind of look like they're disappearing behind the big middle section of our daffodil, and that's it. Your daffodil's done. Remember, you can do big ones or small ones, and this is definitely for more advanced more advanced artists rather than beginner artists. The carnation is really fun to do. It's a whole bunch of squiggly lines. So it's really fun to draw, but it might not be so fun to cut out once you have it drawn on your colored paper. So I'm gonna start with a really weird shape. It kind of looks like the letter C, but like a squiggly outline on that letter C. I'm going to put little dots for the insides of my flower. And then I'm going to add a whole bunch of more of these little C squiggly lines. And occasionally I can do just a regular plain simple petal. And you just keep doing this and adding petals that kind of overlap and go in between and underneath until you are happy with the size of your carnation. And then you stop. And there's your carnation. So 3 different nice, easy flowers to draw out. Once you have practiced this a few times, you can take your pencil and you can draw them on your colored pieces of paper, just like I did. Once you have them drawn out, then you can start adding your color. So our tulips are red, even though we drew them on pink paper. And the reason we did that is because it's easier to add some dark colors onto the light paper rather than light colors on dark paper sometimes. So I'm kind of being sloppy. I'm going to color in parts of my flower, leaving some of the pink showing. And the reason for that is because I'm going to come back in with my orange, and I can do some blending if I have oil pastels. You can sometimes do this with crayons too and colored pencils, although it's easier with oil pastels. And by leaving some of the pink popping through, we allowed there to be some parts that are orange and some parts that are red. I'm going to finish up my petal and then I am done. The last thing I want to do is to take my black oil pastel and outline and add maybe a few more details on my flower. And that is it. I am done now. So I'm going to color in all of these and then I'm going to cut them out and then I'm going to show you how to assemble your collage. Okay, so now that we have our flowers colored and cut out, we are ready to start assembling everything. From here on out, it's just all about gluing. So really fast, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that the ends of our accordion paper are both V's. So they both need to look like the letter V, not like a mountain. So if you have one side that looks like a mountain and the other side that looks like a letter V, just cut off one of the green sections and you will end up with the letter V on either side of your accordion paper. Now we're gonna bunch it all up together and then we are going to glue this onto our background. So with my handy dandy glue stick, whoops, it's like magic. I'm gonna put glue on the outside section and then I'm going to put it onto my background. Now, you don't have to have it going all the way up. If you want to see more of your bunny, you could lower it a little bit. It does not have to be flush or even with the bottom line of your background. It doesn't have to be flush or even with the side either, because once we glue this down on either side, it's not going to be even. We just don't have quite enough paper. So I'm going to press hard, and then I'm going to put glue on this side so that we can glue our big, huge fan to the other side of our background. Now, I'm going to fold my background over. Again, like I said, it's not going to be flush. It's okay. No one's going to notice. And you want to press nice and hard. And then when you let it go, it's going to spring open and you are going to have a 3D collage. How cool is that? Now, before we are done, we have to take our flowers and we have to decide where to glue them on our ground. So we have done our background, we've done our midground, and now we're going to move on to our foreground. Foreground is again the part of our painting or sculpture or whatever, our piece of artwork that is closest to us, the viewer. Background is behind everything and it's farthest away. So the big flowers are going to be glued on the edges of my green fan that are closest to us. The medium-sized flowers are going to be kind of in the middle, so they're going to go farther back. And the smallest flowers are going to be all the way in the background, kind of in those little folds or creases of our fan. So I'm going to do that really fast, and then we're going to check out our awesome finished product. I bet your guys' project is turning out so fabulous. Now keep in mind that what I showed you today was just how I did my original project. If you have an idea to add different things like birds and trees, oh my goodness, I hope that you decide to do that. That will be absolutely fantastic and look really nice. So keep in mind, this is your piece of art. You can add more or skip parts and add less. It's completely up to you. And now for the very last flower, he's going to be in the very back. All right, there you have it. I am finished with my collage. I am all done, and I hope that you had a blast making art with us today. We are going to be back again next week with a really fun project involving scratch art. So, bye. I'll see you all later. Hope you have a great day.